person over here. And if
Hello.
no one knows me, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Alfyn. I'm your local Reno Sparks realtor here. And Jeremiah, go ahead and introduce yourself. Where did he disappear to? There you are. Oh, he actually disappeared. Okay, while we wait on Jeremiah to hop on, here we go.
Hello. My name's Jeremiah. I'm a loan officer with Guild Mortgage in the Reno area
Yes.
and California.
Ooh, okay. Look at that. So if you guys know anyone in the California market, Jeremiah's your person.
Yeah, and Nevada.
Okay, so for anyone watching this now or later, if you are paying $2,200 or more comfortably in rent, have you ever wondered if you could actually own a home around the same monthly payment? Because that's about how much some homes are costing. So definitely you got options. Because a lot of people don't realize that, you don't need the perfect credit. You don't need a huge down payment to buy anymore. There's options, but you got to find out what those options are and what is right for you. Okay. So we want to kind of break it down, and Jeremiah's going to help us kind of, clarify that a little bit as well, because a lot of hesitation comes from misinformation or assumptions.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Our kind of thought is like if you're paying like 2,000, 22, 23, $2,500 a month in rent, the downside to that is if you're paying, let's just say $2,500, that's $30,000 a year that is not contributing to your future, life. You don't get anything back for that. It just goes to the landlord or the apartment complex or whoever it is, right? So if you're paying those amounts, there are homes out there that you could own where you could see a return on your investment, right? And you get to live in it too, which is really positive.
Yes, and I tell my clients, your first home typically is not your forever home. And just data shows within 4 or 5 years, people move because things happen, life happen. You either grow out of your family's growing, you're possibly making even more, and you want like bigger space, and that's totally normal. A lot of people do it. So by that time, you've already built equity and you can definitely look at other options. So this
Yeah.
is actually perfect because me and Jeremiah were hosting a webinar, and it's rent versus buy, but we want to be specific to who would benefit with this live. And those are, if you have a credit score around the 600s, or if you're paying that rent amount of 2,200 and up, then that's for you. Or if you know anyone, comment below, and that way they know it's free. They can hop on. It's only for 1 hour of your time, and we provide details as to how it could be possible.
Yeah, because you just never know what your options are going to be, right? Like, there's so many people that I talk to on a weekly basis that are like, I could never qualify, or I can't afford it, or I don't have the money for a down payment, or whatever it might be, whatever the reason is that we think. But 9 out of 10 times, there's always a solution, right? As long as your credit's like a 580, 540 in that range, sometimes you might be able to get approved. If your credit's like way above that, that's even better. If you have no savings, there's down payment assistance programs and there's gifts. And like you're saying, once you own a home, you can pull money from it and buy another property. So a lot of people are doing that. So if you never get into the game, the only thing that you would have to show at the end is just whatever your lease agreement is. So it's always a good asset.
Absolutely. And I feel like we talked about this last time. People that are renting, it's not a fixed payment, right?
It's
It
not
keeps
fixed.
going up. And I know a lot of people have talked about it too. And I'm like, wow, you started at one point at 1,800 and now you're paying 2,500. And
Crazy.
where's that money going to, right? So if that's you and you're feeling it in your heart, this might be your sign to definitely inquire and find out for yourself. So, just based on your opinion or what you've seen, Jeremiah, how much are renters paying right now?
Yeah, I think the average rent is like around 2,000. or 2,200 or like $1,900 or something like that. I would say most people pay between 1,900 and like 3,000 a month for rent. Don't
Absolutely.
you
And that's
think?
why, oh, yeah. And I've helped even a client, like if they're already paying around that much for an apartment, and you want something like low payments like that, but own something, then there's condo options as well. And, wait a couple of years and we can upgrade you to a single family. So there's options like that you people can definitely check. I feel like people just feel overwhelmed with starting the process, but if you're already paying that much, let's look at options. Let's look at what's comfortable, get that equivalent to a home, and then over time build that equity and we can upgrade in 4 or 5 years. I mean, honestly, what 3 year point is typically when people start really seeing some of that equity.
Mhm.
So get it now. Let's revisit where your equity stands in year three.
Year three is true. Most people sell or move within 5 to 7 years. And so a lot of people worry, like, oh, I'm getting a 30-year fixed loan. I'm never going to pay it off, like, blah, blah, blah. But it's like at the end of the day, you're not going to have it for 30 years. This is just a
Mm-hmm.
temporary little product to get you into home ownership, right? So if we think of it just slightly different as like a strategy, so we're paying money upfront to the bank to own this asset, but you're gaining money through equity and you're paying down your principal and all this stuff, right? So you're gaining a lot more theoretically than you would be if you're renting. And that's not to say if you're paying like, $1,000 a month for rent, and you can save a couple $1,000s a month, then maybe that's a better option for you, right? Like not everyone in the whole entire world is meant to own a home, but also not everyone is meant to rent. So I think you have to find out like who you are, and the numbers don't lie, right? So like if you can afford 2,000 or 2,500, you can probably afford maybe like 26 or 27. Most of the time, maybe $100 or so, because $100 these days is like going to where like the local Chili's, on like a Tuesday
Yeah.
for
Oh
a
my gosh. You go
margarita.
out and have you seen that reel? Like
Yes.
someone steps out the door and it's like ching, 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 ching. Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, literally, I feel like it's
That's
just
how I feel.
constant.
You
Yeah, like
step
I
out the door,
wake up
you're
spending
like
money.
$100 out.
Yeah. You go get like a Vietnamese coffee or something and it's like $28 and it's 8 ounces. Like it's crazy these days. So I think we
Right?
can, all afford more than we would like to say we can, right? So it just depends on what your goals are.
S- Absolutely. And totally agree with that. But I know with the speculations and like the reservedness of some renters, what in your thoughts are the biggest myth with renters and with like what they believe is about buying a home? Like, what is the biggest myth that we can
Yeah.
bust?
I think the biggest myth is that people think they need a big down payment or they need to have good credit. You don't have to have good credit. I think that's a big, big hurdle. And I think the other big one we could just throw in there is just student loans. So you can
Oh
have
yeah,
like,
people ask that a lot.
yeah, because you can have like a bazillion dollars in student loans as long as you can afford to make an estimated payment or you're making a payment. If you make a $5 payment on your credit report, we can use that for your student loan payment. So if you have, $300,000 in student loans or whatever it is, because you were a physician or lawyer or whatever, and you're paying, $100 a month on those, we can put that $100 in and we're not factoring in anything more than that. Depends on your loan, all these things, right? So I think those are like the three things. You don't need money. There's so many people that have bought homes with like $1,000, and you don't need good credit, and you can have $1 million in student loans. And I think those are the three biggest hurdles that I see most of the time.
Absolutely. And then in your opinion, realistically, what credit score do you think people would need typically to start?
I think your bare minimum. So this is how I always tell everyone. So if you have your own down payment saved, you need a 580, and that's 3.5% down. If you don't want to spend your own money or don't have your own funds to spend for the down payment, then you need a minimum of a 600, and then you come in with 0% because you can get a down payment program. So whichever one you think is more beneficial to you, right? So if you're like a 550 credit score, then we could work on a couple things versus a 580 versus a 600, that kind of idea.
Absolutely. Say hi to
So,
Julie. So, but this is
um,
exactly why we're doing the webinar, because people think they need to be, perfect before even talking to a
mhm,
lender. And a lot of times, people do it a little bit backwards where they're already looking at homes and, prior to even seeing what they can get pre-approved. So,
mhm,
or, work with the lender first, see what the plan is, and then we can definitely dive in, because I feel like people tend to fall in love prematurely, and it's heartbreaking sometimes when it gets crushed, right? At least
mhm.
from some of my experience with
It's
people that
true.
look ahead.
It's true.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like going house hunting without a pre-approval is like going to a marathon without shoes. Like you can't do anything. You can't make an offer, you can't run the race. Your feet are going to hurt, you're going to be annoyed if you miss out. Like you can't do it. So like you have to make sure that you know what your numbers are before you go shopping. I mean, how fun is it to go shopping and you can't buy anything?
Right, right, exactly. You know, so
Not fun.
talking about numbers, if someone's paying around 2,200 in rent right now, what would that potentially look like in terms of buying power?
Yeah, I think it would depend, of course, on a million factors, but I would say that's anywhere from like maybe like 350,000 up to maybe the like just under around 400,000, depending on a down payment and interest rate and closing costs and blah blah blah. I would say it's probably closer to somewhere in the threes though.
See, and that's so doable. And, imagine instead of paying rent every month, you're actually building equity of your own. Even with that price range, we can get you something, right? We can definitely look and
Yeah.
get you something to start your starter home, build something. So if you or anyone is watching this live later, definitely tag someone that would benefit with this, especially for that webinar on the 20th. It's gonna be 11 to 12. So if that's you or someone just go ahead and comment webinar, and I can send you the registration link as well. So I'm excited. I'm excited to just provide information,
Yeah.
data support, and definitely Jeremiah will be able to answer any questions as well. Other than that, did you have any other closing remarks?
No, just we'll see you guys on the 20th at 11 a.m. sharp. Please be there. Sign up. RSVP. We're starting on time. Um, and it'll be good.
Yes. So thank you so much, Jeremiah. Thank you for always dropping a lot of knowledge and clarity to anyone watching. And if you have any
Thanks.
questions, feel free to just leave it below. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Are you anywhere else, Jeremiah?
I guess on all of it, like LinkedIn, TikTok, the Instagrams, Facebook, uh, Google reviews. Check them out.
There you go. Yay. Okay. Well, other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Okay, I'll see you guys soon.